My first barbecue event turned out to be like hell. Not only was I busy preparing for the event, but on the day itself, I was the only one running around in the scorching summer heat. "We're running out of meat, go buy some." My husband, who should have been the organizer, seemed to be enjoying himself, acting all high and mighty in front of the employees. "Hey, servant! Where's the beer? What are you doing? You're a servant, so get to work." Apparently, my in-laws really liked the word servant. Every chance they got, they called me a servant. It seems like this family really wanted a servant, and that's why they married me off to Kent. Not only did they take advantage of me, but they also looked down on my dear brother. Most unforgivable of all is their attempt to steal not only the dignity of others but also the precious mementos of my beloved parents. I won't let these people have their way anymore. I will protect what is dear to me. I will never forgive them for trying to take away what is precious to me. My name is Natalie. I'm a 35-year-old housewife. I've been married to Kent, whom I met through the introduction of the manager of the convenience store where I used to work, for 3 years now. Kent, 42, runs a small company. Kent's parents, who were regulars at the convenience store, begged me to marry their son. I don't have parents. They both passed away from illness when I was in junior high. So, I've been working hard all my life, with no time for love or marriage. Then came Kent, the CEO, and warm in-laws who liked me. When I met him, Kent was gentle, kind, and a true gentleman. He mentioned that he had been divorced, apparently because his ex-wife had been unfaithful. I couldn't delve too deeply into the matter, but Kent had a painful past. My in-laws also said, "Think of us as your real parents." With the introduction from the manager and the joy of having parents, albeit in-laws, I agreed to the marriage. The dream of a happy married life was short-lived. I came to know reality. Marriage has taught me something. The Kent family, including Kent himself, is a bit unusual. Right after we registered our marriage, Kent said something to me. "Sorry, but I'm officially single at work. You know our company deals with cosmetic samples, right? So, being a single, handsome young CEO is appealing to our female clients and business partners." There were many things I wanted to retort, but first, I couldn't help but shiver at Kent calling himself handsome. By the way, even though he's said to be single, it's not like he's hiding the fact that he's divorced. According to Kent, being divorced adds a touch of sadness and humanity, which apparently plays well externally. Is this also part of his self-promotion? Despite my confusion, for the time being, I followed Kent's lead. With this incident, I began to think that Kent was a bit different, but it wasn't just Kent who was different. Since I got married, I had intended to set up a new home with Kent, but Kent expressed a desire to live in my house. "I'm so pleasantly surprised that you've been living in such a splendid house." That was said by Heather, my mother-in-law. The house I live in is a large detached house inherited from my deceased parents. "An insolent, poor girl like you lived in such a house without parents?" muttered my father-in-law, Ted. He didn't seem to realize that he was being asked. When Kent said he wanted to live in my house, I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, as soon as Kent moved into my house, my in-laws also rolled in. My in-laws dote on Kent. They insist that since they're always together, it's only natural to live in the same house, and they started living here as if it were their own. I strongly resisted letting them live in this house, but they didn't accept it at all. Is this what marriage is supposed to be like? I couldn't help but feel bewildered by this new experience. There's something else I learned after getting married. This family holds an annual barbecue event as a tradition. While a family barbecue might be understandable, they invite Kent's company employees and friends. Presumably, this is because Kent, who is conscious of his image, hosts the event. When you hear barbecue event, you probably imagine a fun gathering. In the first year of marriage, I was looking forward to it a bit too. However, for those who married into this family, it turned out to be a major test event. I heard that there are about 50 participants every year. I was wondering who would be managing such a large-scale barbecue event, and then Kent came to me with a smile and said, "You're a hard worker, so I'm counting on you. On the day of the event, make sure to take good care of everyone." I never imagined it, but sending invitation emails to guests, purchasing a large amount of food and cutlery for the event, preparing and setting up the venue, everything was entrusted to me alone. For me, the first barbecue event was like hell. Not only the preparations for the event but also on the day itself, under the scorching summer sun, I was the only one running around. My husband, who should have been the organizer, seemed to be in high spirits, boasting in front of the employees. "We're running out of meat, go buy some." Despite the employees offering to buy it themselves by saying, "We'll go buy it," Kent shook his head and said, "No need, just enjoy yourselves. I'll have my servant take care of the shopping." The word servant made me react strongly. Even if he presents himself as single at work, isn't calling me a servant going too far? To make matters worse, my in-laws also started using that term. "Hey, servant, there's no beer. What are you doing? You're a servant, so get to work." Apparently, my in-laws took a liking to the word servant. Whenever they had the chance, they would call me a servant. And whether it was because of how it sounded or not, they would say it when no one else was around, making it even worse. I was being exploited by Kent and my in-laws, and by the end of the event, I was so exhausted that I couldn't even get up. The thought of this happening every year sent shivers down my spine. From around this time, Kent and my in-laws' attitudes towards me began to visibly change. Kent was dedicated to his work. However, he also had the mindset that as long as he did his job properly, he could do whatever he wanted. A while after we got married, Kent brought home a young woman. "She's staying here tonight, so get the bath and meals ready," he said, then went into his room with her. I was too surprised to say anything. "You always bring home beautiful women. You're so different from her." And Heather laughed as if it were nothing. Unable to believe this was normal, I followed the two to Kent's room. As I was about to complain and opened the door, I heard the woman's moans from inside. Feeling numb, I couldn't say anything and just cried in my own room. The Kent I saw at first, who seemed kind and sincere, was probably just acting. The in-laws were no different. My unemployed in-laws treated me like a servant during the day. It was natural for them to demand meals whenever they pleased and to make a mess that I had to clean up. Then, they would demand things like bread from a bakery that required quite a drive to get to, saying, "I want to eat it now, so go buy it." When I showed my frustration, Heather said, "Maybe you don't know because you don't have parents, but this is what parents do. Remember what you said when you got married? Treat them like real parents. So stop complaining and get to work." The warmth I felt was just an illusion. They probably assumed that since I didn't have parents, I wouldn't leave no matter how badly they treated me. Certainly, I had nowhere else to go besides this house. Soon enough, the season for my second barbecue event arrived. Remembering what happened last time made me feel heavy-hearted, but having gone through it once, I was prepared. From an early stage, I had already prepared things like cutlery. That year, too, there were 50 guests, but there was something in Kent's order that wasn't there last year. A karaoke set. Kent had said he liked singing, so I thought maybe we were going to have a karaoke contest this year, and I rented a complete karaoke set. But on the day of the event, surprisingly, there was no karaoke contest. Instead, towards the end of the event, Kent's one-man show began. To be honest, Kent's singing was mediocre. It wasn't particularly good, but it wasn't terrible either, I thought. However, the occasional off-key note dampened the mood. The guests all had indescribable expressions on their faces. I thought the event would be ruined if things continued like this, so I started clapping and cheering along with Kent's singing from the back row. Then, the guests around me started clapping along too. And in another place, I did the same, and the guests there joined in, too. I did this in about 5 places, and the whole venue started to get excited about Kent's singing. Kent, feeling encouraged, enjoyed himself singing with everyone, so the event ended without being a disaster. It was only about 30 minutes, but it was truly a painful time. The doting in-laws were delighted with their skewed thinking, saying things like, "Kent should become a singer," or "Let's start a fan club right away." Since I managed to finish the barbecue event this year as well, I thought it would surely be easier next year. And then, the 3rd summer of our marriage arrived. During that time, Kent continued to bring women home regularly. Sometimes it was the same woman, sometimes it was different. I had already gotten used to it, and I didn't feel anything anymore when Kent brought home a woman. As long as Kent insisted he was having business meetings, I would agree. Even though he was certain of his infidelity, he was also annoyed that people would think he was jealous of the other woman by accusing her of being unfaithful. It was irritating to think that they were planning how to exploit me every day, even my in-laws. With nothing else to look forward to, I went along with their bullying. More importantly, I needed to focus on the upcoming barbecue event, despite having some doubts about it. Since people outside the family were involved, I couldn't afford any mistakes or blunders. With a strong sense of responsibility, I had a kind of fighting spirit. Whether Kent knew about my feelings or not, he came up with an outrageous plan for this year's barbecue event. We're inviting 300 people this year. I thought I misheard him, but Kent repeated himself to me, looking bewildered. We're inviting 300 people this year. Apparently, it wasn't a mistake. Kent planned to have 300 guests at this year's barbecue event. Previously, it was only about 50 people, so it was simply 6 times as many. Hey Kent, I can't believe I'm asking, but am I going to prepare everything alone again this year? Heather immediately replied to my question. What are you talking about? Of course you are. You've been doing it all along, so you can handle it this time too. It seemed she had no intention of helping at all. Honestly, I didn't expect her to. However, I was puzzled as to why they suddenly decided to invite 300 people. Then, Ted began to speak with a heavy breath. Kent's performance last year was outstanding. The guests were very pleased with Kent's performance. So, this year, we're going to have Kent's one-man live show. I almost dropped the smartphone I was holding in my hand. I was astonished by the outrageous idea of Kent's one-man live show. Ignoring my feelings, the conversation continued. Surprises are always good, right? We'll suddenly turn off the lights in the middle of the barbecue. Then, Kent, who is changed into a costume, will appear. Wouldn't an a cappella be good for the first song? It'll really grab everyone's hearts. I couldn't say anything. Even the brief entertainment of about 30 minutes last time was barely exciting. Especially for a live performance in front of 300 people, which even semi-professionals find difficult to attract. Just preparing for the barbecue for 300 people was already daunting, let alone setting up for a one-man live show. I couldn't even imagine how much budget would be needed. We've been collecting a $20 participation fee for this event every time. But this year, unbelievably. After all, it's a $100 per person. Let's make it grand. They said, making outrageous statements. Even I, who had my limits, objected. Isn't $100 per person maybe a bit too much? The participation fee should remain the same as before, don't you think? At that point, Heather loudly interrupted me. You really are clueless. Kent's going to sing, right? You should pay a fee to the artist. Why are you making a fuss about something so obvious? This is why poor girls like you, who have no parents, lack common sense and are troublesome. Up to this point, it could have been a joke about misunderstanding family members, but with Ted's words afterward, I couldn't remain calm. The money collected will be used for renovating this house, so stop complaining. It was news to me. What did he mean by renovating this house? I confronted Kent about it. Kent, what do you mean? This is my house, right? I didn't give permission for renovations. Kent sighed and said, what's wrong with it? It's just remodeling to suit Dad and Mom's taste. It's our house too, not just yours, so don't butt in, you noisy brat. In the first place, I never intended to let my in-laws, let alone Kent, live here. It was my precious home left by my parents, and I wanted to keep it as it was when we spent time together as a family. It was unthinkable to allow them to intrude and renovate it without permission. You're such a nagging wife. If you keep complaining so much, I don't mind if you leave. We will take this house. We took in a poor, lonely girl with nowhere else to go out of kindness, so repay the favor. Even though I don't have parents, it doesn't mean I don't have a family. I have a younger brother who grew up with me. When I got married, I asked Kent's family to meet him, saying I wanted them to meet him. But he said dealing with relatives was bothersome and refused to meet him. What good will it do to meet your poor brother? We won't gain anything from it. They were terrible in-laws. No, even though they're in-laws, I can't think of them as parents. They're monsters wearing human skin, who only care about their son. Kent is the same. Even if it's for the sake of the company's image, does he really need to pretend to be single? Then maybe he shouldn't have gotten married in the first place? The kind smile he had when we first met is nowhere to be found now. Now, he's just a monster's child, controlled by his parents. I had begun to realize it around the time of my second barbecue event after getting married, but Kent's family must have wanted me and Kent to get married so they could have a servant. And not only did they exploit me to their heart's content, but they also looked down on my precious brother. What's unforgivable above all is that they're trying to take away not only my dignity as a person but also the precious memento of my parents. I won't let them have their way anymore. I will protect what's precious to me. I will never forgive them for trying to take away what's precious to me. First, I searched for a venue suitable for a barbecue event for 300 people. I immediately contacted a large venue I knew of and made a reservation. Moreover, when I mentioned that we would be having a live performance, they said they would set up a stage for us. And out of goodwill from the event company, they also arranged for sound operators and lighting. I felt reluctant to accept their kindness, given Kent and my in-laws' selfishness, but I decided to take advantage of it. Food items have already been arranged to be swiftly transported on the day of the event with the help of the event company. Cutlery has also been divided into approximately 50 tables, with each table accommodating 6 people so that everything can be self-contained at each table. Beverages will be available at several dedicated counters throughout the venue, allowing guests to easily pour or retrieve drinks themselves. Various measures have been taken to ensure that guests are not inconvenienced even with minimal staff present. I was also dragged into assisting with Kent's costume fitting. Ted's sense of style went overboard, resulting in costumes that seemed like they belonged to a singer from a different era, completely incompatible with the Reiwa era. It seems that the Kent family has been practicing singing in karaoke boxes every night. I won't stop them anymore. Let them embarrass themselves with their one-man live show or whatever else they want to do. Since the first song is supposed to be a cappella, just imagining Kent's singing ability in that style is ridiculous. With a grand stage being set up and flashy lighting, any shortcomings will be exposed even more. I've started to look forward to the barbecue event, even if just a little. However, despite smoothly progressing with all the preparations so far, my body seems to have reached its limit in reaction. On the day before the event, after completing all the preparations, I collapsed in the living room from exhaustion. My in-laws and Kent were present, but no one assisted me as I lay there. The 3 of them were happily making a racket about tomorrow's event. I managed to drag myself back to my room and made a call to someone. My body feels heavy, perhaps I overexerted myself a bit. Unfortunately, I might not be able to attend the event tomorrow. I wanted to hear Kent's a cappella. Then I heard Heather's voice from downstairs. "Hey! Stop lazing around and get up early tomorrow. You're going to work hard, got it?" Although it was no longer my in-laws speaking but rather a monster, I still wanted to rest my body even just a little. As I imagined those 3 trembling with regret and anger, I fell asleep. The next morning, I was struck by intense chills. My body and head hurt, and I felt too dizzy to get up. Despite my condition, Heather paid no mind and said, "How long are you going to sleep? You lazybones. Get up and start working. Today is an important event." With that, she ripped the covers off my bed. This person has transcended being a monster and become a demon. While she complained to me for not moving from the bed, Kent entered the room. "It's okay, Mom. Let the lazy one be and let's have fun on our own." With Kent's words, Heather finally calmed down. Then Kent looked down at me, who was lying down. "Listen, you. Whether you're here or not doesn't matter to me. If anything, I'd be less stressed without you around. Understand? I never thought of you as a wife or anything. When I get back, we're getting divorced." With that, he handed me a completed divorce form. For my part, I was rather lucky that I didn't have to go get divorce papers. Kent threw out one last remark, "Pack up your stuff," but I wondered why I had to pack up. I need to firmly remind them that it's their responsibility to pack up. They left the house, laughing happily, carrying Kent's outdated stage costumes tenderly. Without me, how will they manage the event? Well, Kent calls himself a charismatic figure. Considering he's running a business, I assume the employees will help out. When they return, I'm sure they'll have good news to share. In the late afternoon, the Kent family returned home. Their demeanor had changed completely from the cheerful atmosphere when they left. Everyone came home looking downcast and silent. "Welcome home, everyone. You seem a bit down. Is something wrong?" I asked, but neither Ted nor Kent responded, wearing expressions of disappointment. The situation unfolded just as I had expected, and I found myself starting to feel amused. In the midst of it all, only Heather must have glared at me. And in the next moment, her expression turned startled. Who's that person? Sitting on the sofa and receiving an 4 drip beside me, she was surprised to find a stranger, a man, nearby. The person they referred to was adjusting the 4 drip while greeting them. Nice to meet you. I'm Dr. Arthur Milan. Arthur greeted politely to the 3 of them. I was called here. You said you weren't feeling well, right? So, how was the event? I'm sorry I missed the live performance. I'm pretty sure my personality is equally unpleasant. Success wasn't on the cards anyway. Huh? It was obviously fantastic. It was a huge success. It was even better than last year. I wanted to ask what was so great about it, but it seemed they weren't going to tell me the truth. In that case, I'll have to ask someone who was at the venue about the situation. Ethan, you're here, right? How was today's event? When I called out, Ethan, a slender man for a male, came from the direction of the entrance. Oh, everyone. Good work earlier. How was the stage? Wasn't it flashy and cool? I put my heart into preparing for it. When they saw Ethan's face, the 3 of them grimaced awkwardly. Hey, aren't you the manager of the event venue earlier? What are you doing here? Kent pointed at Ethan, his cheeks twitching. I was asked by my sister to report on today's event. The statement from Ethan caught the attention of Kent's family. You're Natalie's brother? While they had arbitrarily labeled my brother as a poor person, Ethan was managing an event company splendidly. His annual income was probably much higher than Kent's. Oh, it was tough, wasn't it? Wasn't the expected attendance for today 300 people? I heard it was a big event, so I prepared exactly 50 tables. But in reality, there were 39 people. Since the number was low, it was enough with just your parents, right? You seem to be running around hectically. Hearing 39 people, I almost knocked over the 4 stand. I had sent invitation emails precisely to the specified 300 people during the preparation stage. It seems the $100 admission fee wasn't appealing after all. However, I didn't expect the attendance to be this low. I managed to hold back from bursting out laughing. Then, Kent's family must have been busy with the arrangements. There's no sympathy at all. I've been shown that hell twice already. Kent glared at Ethan as if to say, don't say unnecessary things. Even if the expected number of people doesn't come, you still have to pay for the venue and setup. That's $18,000 in total. This time, with Ethan, who runs an event company, helping out, arrangements were made for ingredients for 300 people for the venue and stage. I think $18,000 is cheap. Considering that I expected 300 people at $100 yen each, I must have calculated with $30,000 coming in. My condolences. With this, home renovation is just a dream within a dream. We can't possibly pay that. Only 39 people showed up. While Kent trembled and said so, Ethan replied with a smile on his face. It doesn't matter. In contrast to Ethan's smiling face, Kent's family seemed to be getting older and older. From Ethan's remarks, it's likely that the live performance was a huge failure. Last year, I did my best to liven things up. There's no way Kent's singing would liven up without any preparation. Even if the 39 people who came knew in advance about Kent's solo live performance, they might not have come. No, they probably wouldn't have come. Kent is misunderstanding me. He called me a poor person, but he's the one who's mistaken. Kent. You're not as cool as you think you are. Is the 4 finished? Arthur said so and gently removed the needle from my arm. Seeing that, Kent began to shout as if he had realized something. Natalie, didn't you do something with that guy, saying he's a doctor? Right? I'm going to divorce you because of your infidelity. I'll sue you for damages, so be prepared. With Kent's speech as if he had cut off the head of a demon and his family joining in, too. You're a dirty wife. Lying about being unwell and bringing a man in on your husband's important day. I'll claim damages from you too for the mental anguish. Don't leech off a doctor or a rich man, you're truly the daughter of beggars. To Kent and his family's filthy remarks, I could only sigh. Arthur is my brother. At my words, Kent's family stopped moving. Huh? Then this event company is? they said, looking at Ethan. He's my brother. He's my brother. Both of them are my brothers. The three of them opened their mouths wide in surprise. It's understandable. After all, the people who have been berating me as poor are doing much more splendid work than I imagined. As a doctor, I'd like to say that the cause of my sister's collapse was overwork. How much did you make my sister work, as a housewife, for her to end up like this? This is abuse. Shall we go to the police? In response to Arthur's calm words, Heather reacted promptly. I'm not abusing her. What nonsense. You have a bad ear. You don't understand because you don't have parents. Children are supposed to serve their parents. I'm just teaching my parentless daughter the value of parents. In the end, she even screamed that if I said it was abuse, I should provide evidence. It's great that she's raising the flag herself. Evidence, well. I always carry a voice recorder at the advice of someone. I had doubts about you guys around the first barbecue event. I said so and took out a small voice recorder from my pocket. Since I was being bullied every day, so I can usually tell when something unpleasant is about to be said. I press the record button quickly at such times. So, about 2 years' worth of audio is securely stored. At my words, Kent and his family turned pale. But still, only Heather came back with a strong rebuttal. What? Isn't that eavesdropping? You're the one who's going to be guilty of that. To Heather, who was as strong as ever, I was truly amazed, but I didn't care anymore if my ties with these people were cut. When I thought it was time to deliver the final blow, someone's voice was heard again. Shall we file a civil lawsuit then? Everyone looked at the voice. Kent's family was puzzled by the man who entered the living room. Ah, Joe, you're early. At my words, the three looked surprised. For people as stupid as them, they're surprisingly perceptive. Joe is my eldest brother. Naturally, the three showed expressions of shock. Joe continued his speech without paying attention to them. I was happy to hear that my sister was getting married. But I couldn't understand why I never met her even once. I listened to my sister's story and investigated Kent. You said you were divorced once to my sister, but you're actually divorced 4 times, aren't you? At Joe's words, Kent's face twisted slightly. It's not good to marry my sister, saying you're divorced once, right? Moreover, you've been committing adultery for a long time, haven't you? After being told this far, Kent opened his mouth. I don't know if you're her brother or what, but what authority do you have to investigate me? Don't mess with me. What civil lawsuit? You're not a lawyer, are you? So, as Kent shouted angrily, I told him the truth. Joe is a lawyer. I officially commissioned him this time. Joe also advised me on the voice recorder. Kent's face froze with anger still on his face. Joe mercilessly began to finish off Kent. After all, you'll likely be sued by several women. It seems you received large sums of money, hinting at marriage. I assume each woman will demand compensation, so the total will likely be tens of thousands of dollars. Kent slumped to the floor, his knees buckling. Ted also seemed to be holding his head in his hands. Only Heather seemed to have not given up yet. Hey, if you're Natalie's little brother, that makes us family, right? Let's stop fighting as a family. Okay? It was bad that we didn't meet. But let's get along from now on. What a terrible statement to make, shifting the blame onto oneself. Perhaps because the person I thought was a poor brother turned out to be a manager, a doctor, or a lawyer, they easily changed their tune. I don't understand the meaning, so I'll give up. We are not your family. Family? Unfortunately, Arthur just went to submit divorce papers. It seems they were accepted without any issues. So, we'll decline your proposal, Heather. So Heather, known for her usual composure, also froze in place. Her face quickly turned pale. Well, please take care of the payment for the event, which amounts to $18,000 for now. I acknowledge the abusing of my sister, and as a doctor, I'm going to call the police. As for me, we will discuss various matters in court. I remember hearing that you called my sister a poor girl. I would like to correct you on that. My sister is the reason we are where we are today. She raised us well on behalf of our parents. We have never felt poor. I think you are the poor people who are poor and dirty at heart. Before we knew it, the Kent family had sat down with 3 others on the floor, their faces pale. As much as it pains me in despair, I couldn't stay here forever, so I also spoke up. So, please gather your things and get out of here. This house is precious to us siblings. I said to them with the most genuine smile I could muster. This would be my first and last smile directed at them. They brought this upon themselves. The three of them happily go to hell together. The Kent family left, and the refreshing air returned to this house. I heard that those three monsters were kicked out of this house and moved into a small apartment together. Since then, my brothers have started to visit me frequently out of concern. I went to report my divorce to the convenience store manager who introduced me to Kent, intending to apologize, but instead, I was apologized to by the manager. Natalie, I'm sorry. If I had known they were like that, I wouldn't have introduced you. I'm really sorry. I learned that after that, Kent's parents appeared at this convenience store. And apparently, they caused a scene in the store, saying, "You introduced us to such an outrageous woman. Pay us compensation," causing a commotion. The manager reported them to the police, and the parents got into trouble. Apparently, Kent's parents initially wore a mask in front of the manager. When the truth came out, is this what it means to be unmasked? When I expressed my desire to work at this convenience store again, the manager was genuinely delighted. On the other hand, Kent, who was sued for compensation by numerous women, ended up transferring the management rights of his company to another company as it became unsustainable. Of course, I'm also claiming compensation from Kent. In addition to compensation, I'm also adding the issue of Kent's past divorce record falsification and the abuse towards me. Nevertheless, being divorced 4 times is surprising. It seems Kent's family tried to conceal his divorce history. It was a little later when I learned that Kent's previous wives left him because the infamous BBQ event was too painful. At any rate, I'm satisfied that I was able to protect this house. Despite all the terrible things that were said, I have my brothers who protected me. They are truly irreplaceable family. Today, my 3 brothers came to visit. There was still the same warmth as before. I intend to continue living happily, protecting this house left by my parents and my precious 3 brothers.